All right, we're back on the Corvette project today. This video is going to be all about fixing the rear bumper. It is completely ripped. I'll show you that in just a second. In the meantime, the Corvette is back on the ground. It runs, it drives, it needs some fluids changed, but we'll get to that later. I did get brand new tires put on it all the way around. I went with a brand called Otsu, O-H-T-S-U here. I'm not even sure where it's at, right there. And they are actually decent tires. I mean, it's just a cheap Chinese knockoff tire. I believe it's owned by Sumitomo, which is really popular on Mustangs. And I actually had this brand of tire on a Mustang once before, and they're solid. I didn't have any issues with it. They held up well, they rode well, they weren't loud, all that good stuff. So I threw some tires on there. We got the seats on, as you saw in the last video. I got the exhaust on. Like I said, it runs, it drives. I did put new light bulbs and put the new fog lights in. I don't remember if I did that on video or not, but they're in, so that's great. Sorry, my phone rang. Don't know where I was at. Anyway, so car runs and drives. I did take it down the road. It did fine. Spun some tire. Brakes work. Oh yeah, I bled the brakes. I don't remember if I did that in the video or not, but I used this cheap Harbor Freight pressurized pneumatic brake bleeder. Fantastic little tool. I've always done it the old-fashioned way. Have somebody in the car, pump it, hold it, you know, crack it. It takes forever. It's pain. So that was a game changer. If you haven't tried those bleeding brakes, you should. So yeah, I think that catches us up to speed on where we're at with the Corvette. We're almost done, honestly. I got to get the bumper. We're going to try and repair that in this video. Few odds and ends on the inside. I do have an Eibach lowering bolt kit. I may throw that on because I think it would look really good. Lower another couple inches, and then I'd like to repaint it. But again, right now I just want to get it running and driving on the road daily, that kind of thing. All right, so let's look at that bumper. Okay, as you can see, this is the rip. Right here. It's not good. It's pretty bad. Honestly, I don't know if I am skilled enough to repair it, but I figure for what it cost, for about $400 to get a new one, or not even new, to get a used one that's not tore up like this, I figure it's worth the shot to at least try to repair it, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to do a few different techniques here. I've already put a little bitty hole here, which is, they say it kind of stops the tear. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but what's it hurt, right? So now I'm going to go along here and do some drift stitching, which is basically putting in some good old zip ties. And I'm going to try and get it back in the right position and get it, you know, in place. Once we get the zip ties in and it's solid, then I'm going to clean this all up because it's pretty dirty. We're going to come in and I'm going to, from the back side, I'm going to try and do a little bit of hot staples. I've seen it used quite a bit on a lot of YouTube videos, so I figured it'd be really cool to try it. So I bought me a little hot stapler kit, and basically it just melts a little staple into the polymer, or the urethane, sorry. What is this? Urethane plastic. Either way, it melts it into this bumper and should give it some structural rigidity. So we're going to do that all along this big tear, and then we're going to go around the front, and basically I'm going to grind it all down smooth. And then I'm going to, you know, use some body filler on the front side to make it look pretty. Oh, and then on top of the staples, I'm probably also going to use a little bit of fiberglass reinforced filler. Again, maybe use actual fiberglass. I don't know yet. I'm just trying a few different techniques to see if I can make this work. I've never done work quite like this before, so new to me, and I'm going to do it on video. So let's hope it works out. All right, I'm going to put this up on a lapse, and I'm going to start stitching. All right, we got the drift stitching in. We got the zip ties in. It's essentially that's all it is. It fit pretty well, obviously, with all the curves and where the rip was on the, you know, side and the bottom. It went together okay. I don't know how much you could see in the time lapse, but it went together okay. There's a little bit of gap here and there. There's obviously some material missing. I don't have any idea. I don't know how long it was like this, but there's a bit of a gap. But it's not bad. So the goal here, at least what I'm trying to accomplish, is I'm going to come back now and I'm going to use the hot stapler, and I'm going to go about every inch and a half, and I'm going to sink a staple in all the way around here. And then I'm going to take these zip ties out, because we don't want those to stay in. So hot staples, zip ties out, and then I think I'm going to grind about, I'd say 3 inches all around, and I'm going to use 2 to 3 layers. I hope that's sufficient, but 2 to 3 layers of fiberglass mat and resin, and that should strengthen. It should strengthen this bumper up from the back side. And then what we'll do on the front is just grind it all smooth, make sure there's no high spots, and use some standard body filler to shape and make the front look good. But that's the plan. Right or wrong, I'm hoping it works. I tell you what, I'm already farther along than I thought I was going to be with this bumper, because like I said, or like you saw, it was pretty rough. I mean, you know, all this here was all ripped. That's quite a bit of bumper that's, you know, flimsy and floppy. But I've rambled long enough. Let's get the hot stapler out and see what it does after I clean it. Alright, so I'm probably gonna have to pause the progress of this video because my battery's about dead. But before I take a break to let this charge, I wanted to kind of go over what I'm going to use to complete this repair. So the first thing we're going to do is a cheap Amazon special. I don't know, I think it was like 50 bucks, I don't remember now, but hot stapler. This is the power supply. I haven't used it yet. This is the first time I'm going to use it. Here's the gun, or whatever you want to call it. And then all the different kinds of staples it comes with. I'm not really sure which ones I'm going to use yet. Probably these. I feel like the ones with the little S shape will give me the most rigidity. But either way, that's step one. Step two is going to be my resin and fiberglass cloth. That's also new to me. I've never really played with that. I take that back. I played with it back, 15 years ago when I was a teenager working on a Mustang bumper, but in my adult life where I want to actually do a good job, first time. And then we're going to go over here, use some good old cheap Bondo. I got some nicer stuff by Evercoat that I'm going to be using all over that car, but for what I'm doing here, I don't want to open that up. So we're going to use the cheap, just, red Bondo. It'll do the trick. I mean, it's been used for generations. So, and then we'll follow up with some glazing putty if needed. Fill up the pinholes in the filler. We'll use this just to clean up later. And then we're good. We'll be ready to scuff the whole thing, prime and paint. And then we'll do that to the whole car. I mean, as you know, there's quite a bit of little damages here and there on the car. Some clear coat gone there. I don't know what happened here, but all kinds of rock chips. I think the car will look really good with just a quick scuff and shoot. There's really not a whole lot of major body work needed with the exception of this bumper and this quarter. So yeah, I think it's my game plan. Right or wrong, I think it'll work. Let me know what you think. But anyway, I'm gonna take a quick break here, let this charge, and we'll get back at it. All right, it's the next day. The camera's charged back up. In the meantime, I tried a few things. I tried the hot stapler there. I don't know if I just don't know what I'm doing, which is, very real possibility. But it wasn't working the way I wanted it to work. Basically, it would just melt down in. I would let it set to see if it hardened up, but it pulled right back out. Maybe it's the type of plastic or urethane this bumper is made of. I don't know. But in the interim, while this was charging overnight, I did go ahead and kind of grind down with my die grinder using a twist lock pad. all around the section here where I'm planning to do. So let me back up. I gave up on the hot stapler. That's just not going to cut it. Then I was going to do plastic welding. I decided not to do that because I had one of those real cheapies from like Harbor Freight, and I bet it would work, but it wasn't the direction I wanted to go. Which leads me to the fallback. This is what I did when I was younger, and it works, and you know, other people's done it as well. So I'm going to do some fiberglass, resin, and matte, and do about 2 layers of that over this entire rip, and that should work. And then depending on how it feels, if it's too wobbly or what have you, we may do some short strand filler on the front after I grind down the spots that need it. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to mix up some of my resin here, and we'll use this little chip brush. We'll put down a nice little layer, and then we'll start laying the matte. Another layer of resin, another layer of matte, final layer of resin, and we'll let it dry. I don't know, I didn't even look at the instructions. It may be 24 hours, maybe 4 hours, I don't know. Once it's dry and solid, we'll flip this bumper over. We'll grind out the zip ties, because we don't want them being shown. But on this side, I did go ahead and put some duct tape all along the rip. The reason for that was to keep the resin from, you know, soaking through and dripping through the crack. So it'll actually kind of glue from the inside. It'll fill all the little holes. When it's all said and done, this will be a nice smooth repair. And it should be, you know, it should be strong enough for what we're looking to do. And like I said at the start of this, if it's not, we'll just get a replacement bumper. But why buy a bumper if we can fix it? Anyway, I have rambled long enough. Let me get some resin mixed up, and we're gonna get some of this on here and let it start curing. Okay, so I'm not sure how much of that you saw. I had the camera setting on the bumper, so it bounced around. It fell over a few times. The second layer, I decided just to turn the camera off. Anyway, so I got down, layer of resin, layer of matte, layer of resin, layer of matte, layer of resin. And that's what we're left with. You wanna, when you're doing this, you wanna, you know, kind of dab at it to get as much air out from underneath the matte as you can. As you can see, there is some slight issue with that because of the zip ties, but it is what it is. So it should be plenty strong enough for what we're looking to do. I did look at the back of the can. It's about a 4-hour dry time, which much better than I thought it was going to be. That's at 75 degrees, which I keep my shop at right around 70 to 72 at all times, which is fantastic. So what we're going to do is in about an hour, it should be tacky enough that I can take the tape off, because there's going to be some seepage through the holes where the crack was, and B, where the zip ties went. And I don't want that to get solid and I have a tape issue. So in about half hour to an hour, I'm going to go ahead and take the tape off, and then we'll just wait. So I'll be back with you when this is dry and we're ready to go to the next step. So we're going to see how this works out. It's been about 4.5 to 5 hours since I laid on the last sheet. The majority of it is pretty solid, but there's still some over here that's still a bit tacky and sticky. So I think I'm going to let that set overnight to make sure it's good and hard before I start really grinding around on this side of the bumper. It did what I wanted to do, so pretty happy with that. I did move it outside for a little bit. It feels a whole lot sturdier than this side, surprisingly. But maybe that's just my imagination, because the entire time I've had this thing, it's been flopping around broke. So either way, it's working the way I want it to. We're gonna give it overnight to get hard, and we'll be back tomorrow. So I may have gotten ahead of myself on the video, but this is where we're at now. I have her all schmoed up with some good old Bondo brand body filler, because I had it on hand and it's cheap. But before that, I did use some of the Bondo short strand fiberglass filler. to kind of maybe give it a little extra strength. There's a major high spot on this side, so I'm gonna have to pretty much reshape this. So I'm probably gonna put more filler on that side. Same down here. I had some issue with some cracking, so there's a little bitty zip tie there I'm probably gonna cut once I get this in place. This side of the bumper, this was all pretty good. It sanded out pretty decent with the short strand, and the regular filler did pretty good. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna let this dry and for a couple hours, because my garage I keep pretty cool, so it takes longer. But we're gonna let this dry for a few hours, and then we're gonna come back and I'm gonna block it. I'm not gonna use my DA. Actually, this was a gear driven, but I'm not gonna use my DA on this. I'm gonna do this by hand because I wanna make sure the shape comes out the way it should. I don't want any major highs or major lows. I want it to look good, but I'm not gonna get it perfect. I'm just not, from how the bumper ripped. Anyway, I'm rambling enough. You've seen it, it's got some filler on it. We're making progress. It's one piece now. So let's give this a couple hour break and I'll be right back with you. So I may have gotten ahead of myself. So the last thing you saw, I believe, was doing some work on the bumper. I have the bumper setting on the car. It's not bolted down, anything like that, but it does look okay. I got to do a little more filler work on this edge here, and then as well as here. You can kind of see some of the marks, and it's not a big deal. We'll get this all cleaned up and smoothed out. The rest of the bumper is essentially ready for paint. Maybe a final, 400 grit or equivalent sand. We've got the quarter panel. I don't know if you saw or not, but there was a big fiberglass or paint, I guess paint. I don't know. It was all cracked up on this side here. So I grinded all that out to where it was just smooth material. Used a little bit of glazing putty. I didn't need to use any real filler, just a little bit of glazing putty to smooth that out. Put a little primer on it. I got to come back and do the edges, and I'm not trying to repaint this entire panel. I'll get into that in a minute, but there was a spot here where the clear coat was gone. This probably needs a little more work to smooth out, and then we'll finish the door. The front fender, again, this is just scuffed because up here there was a real weird repair. So I grinded all that out, smoothed it down. It feels really nice there. The entire front bumper was pretty beat up and had a lot of touch-up paint that was not done well. So I'm kind of smoothing that out. This is going to get fully repainted along with the rear bumper, and then we're going to blend that into the front of the fender here. Obviously, the bumper, the fender, the door, the quarter, and the bumper is all going to be re-cleared, but we'll blend the red into this front fender. This will all just get re-cleared, and then we will blend a little bit of this spot here in maybe to the kind of top. Again, I'm just trying to make it look decent, right? And then obviously back here, we'll end up repainting this entire bumper and blend it all the way over here. Technically, I should probably do it on this side too, but we're not going to do that because I think at the end of the day, it's going to come out looking pretty good. So I'm going to keep sanding. There's no reason to time-lapse that because it's kind of boring to watch. I'll be back probably after I put another coat of filler on this bumper. I'm hoping to have the car ready for paint by the end of this video, which would be by the end of this Saturday. I started this video a week ago, so it's been dragging out a little bit. But anyway, let me get moving on this sanding, and I'll be back once I get the next coat of filler on that bumper. So it's basically ready for paint. This bumper turned into quite the ordeal. I'll get into that in a minute. But like I said in the previous clip, I kind of got ahead of myself. I went ahead and started sanding everything, getting it ready to go. At this point, the bumper has been wet sanded to 400 grit. I did have to do a little bit more work over here. We'll come back to that. The quarter panel had quite a bit of damage that was not visible, so obviously this has been repaired before. I had to kind of fix it down here. It was all cracked and it wasn't right. So move along down. The door handle was all peeling, so I got that sanded down. The door is sanded. Again, this is going to be a lot of spot color. A lot of this is just going to get re-cleared, and then only certain parts will get color. So right now, the bumper is going to get painted full. The quarter pretty much full. Just this part of the door. And a couple spots on the front fender. And then the entire front bumper. And I may have just told you that. I don't know. It's been a long day. So then we got the mirror over here, which was already, you know, sunburnt. So the clear was gone on top. And then the handle here. The quarter, the door, the front fender, the hood, all looks fantastic. There's no issues there that needs to be repainted or re-cleared. So let's get on this rear bumper. That's the whole point of this video, right? So it actually came out pretty good. I was concerned for a while. I didn't know how it would work out. It's all in one piece. It all fits the way it should. There's a few spots where it's kind of bent out a little bit from, I guess, 4 years of setting. The repair that I did worked. If you remember, it was the fiberglass on the inside, zip ties, and on the outside, just a little bit of fiberglass filler, followed up with just some standard polyester filler. I did notice, because it was all moving around, it did decide to start cracking again down here. So what I had to do, and I did this today off camera, was I basically grinded that all down, created the V in the crack that was still cracking. It kind of became separated from the fiberglass repair on the back, and I used a standard cheap plastic welder that you can get from like Harbor Freight. I think I got mine on Amazon, but it's all good. And actually, it took about 20 minutes to do the whole crack, but it's more sturdy. It's stronger now than it was when I first finished it, for sure. I do have one spot here where I need to put a little bit of glazing putty. This part here still needs wet sanded, but I'm going to put a little bit of glazing putty here because it's got a little bit of burn through, or not burn through, but a small little noticeable defect. I think she's about ready. I can't think of anything else that it still needs. I used some cheap rattle can primer. I don't recommend doing that. I probably will never do it again. I know it'll work. I know the paint will hold up. It's going to have about a week to fully cure and harden before I actually spray some paint on top of it. It gums up the sandpaper really bad, and it's, you know, just kind of a pain. So I will never do that again. If I am going to use any rattle can primer, it'll be the 2K activated style you can get from a variety of places. But anyway, it's been a long video. It's been a long day. I started this project probably about a week ago, you know, working after work and things like that. But yeah, I started this project about a week ago. We are now essentially ready for paint. The next video will be getting the paint booth out, getting it blown up, and kind of see how it works. I did purchase a inflatable paint booth. It's like 14 foot by 30 some foot. I'm really curious to see how it goes. The reason I bought it was for that car when we get to that point. But I feel like prime opportunity to give it a test. So the next video, we're going to get that out. Probably in the next weekend. I don't know when you'll see this, but just know it'll be a week after this video. We're going to get that out, get it blown up. I'm going to get the car out, wash it, and back it in plastic. You know how it works. But that'll be the next video. I'm really excited to get that done because that's a huge step to get this thing back on the road. From there, just little odds and ends. At that point, I can probably drive it. But anyway, I need to get a shower. I'm filthy. I need to eat some food. If you watched this far, I really appreciate it. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Until next time.